Okay, guys, welcome to another WNBF UK podcast. You're here with myself, Leon Mitchell, WNBF Pro. And today I've got a special guest. I've got a female bodybuilder in the building, which is a rarity for us, okay? So I have Layla Daniel in the building. Layla, how are you doing?
I am very good, thank you. Very excited to be on. Very excited to get talking about female bodybuilding.
Good. I think this one's going to be a classic. There's going to be a lot of gems, a lot of takeaways for a lot of people here. So let's kick this off by finding out who is Layla Daniel.
Oh, that's a hard question. Number one, foremost, female bodybuilder. That runs my life. My life is bodybuilding, and everything else kind of fits in around it. That is me encompassed. So it gives me structure to my life. That's it.
Oh wow! So
yeah.
But I know there's more about you because I was looking at your Instagram, all right? So your Instagram says that you're qualified in is it geoscience, right? Or something, right? So tell me a little bit about that.
A lot.
Because that is you.
That is true. So I have a master's in geoscience. So technically, you could call me a geoscientist as well as a bodybuilder.
Wow.
It's kind of something I fell into from college and then pursued it in my undergrad, and then just kind of narrowed it down even more into geoscience when I went and did my master's at UCL. That was a couple of years ago now, but it's something that has just always been of interest to me, anything remotely related to the environment, and then kind of just like burrowed into that niche of geoscience, which actually isn't that much of a niche. It's really quite broad and you can apply it everywhere, but when you say it sounds like a niche. So I guess I really like my niches. Bodybuilding and geoscience, what a combo.
It is an extremely a good combo to have. So how did you get into your bodybuilding, or where did bodybuilding or fitness kind of come in beside what you was actually studying for?
So bodybuilding never really had anything linked with my studies at all. I mean, like I did like the usual PE GCSE at school and all of that, and I wasn't into bodybuilding back then. I was actually, I played more football and weirdly squash.
Okay.
I played those two, but I've always been athletic, always done sports, always been on like sports teams throughout. But when I went to uni, there wasn't like anything for me to do there. There weren't really any kind of teams, like women's teams for anything other than football. And I just did not make the cut. I was not good enough to be really competitive. That's the honest kind of truth of it. And I ended up like not having, because I couldn't do football like for the number one team. I'm so competitive. And I was like, well, I'm not doing it if I can't be the number one team. So I kind of fell into this awkward pitfall of being in first year, living on campus, and then having my lessons on campus and having everything on campus, and only going out to like get my food and go out. So I wasn't moving. I wasn't doing any kind of like, I didn't train back then. I was kind of just like, I wasn't doing any like training for the sport I was doing because I wasn't doing any sport. So I kind of figured, like, I went on a field trip once because I was doing like physical geography, geology kind of thing. Went on a field trip early on in first year, and I was like, I am wheezing going up a hill. This is a problem. Let's maybe go to the gym. And I'd never really been to a gym before, and I just kind of walked in with no kind of understanding of what to expect, no expectations, no preconceived ideas of it. Just went in, and it was really divided. It was like the upstairs was the cardio kit, and the downstairs was all of like the machines and stuff and the weights. It was what you can get in like a uni campus gym. So it wasn't anything big. It was the University of Brighton, but it wasn't the sports campus. I'll just say that. So I went in and I walked upstairs because that was where the entrance was. And I was like, this is not what I'm about. Okay, we'll give this a go. Played on the cardio kit. And then I went downstairs and I was like, this is a playground. This is literally like a playground in the best kind of way. And like, unbeknownst to me, I was literally the only female in the gym. And it didn't bother me. I have no qualms with being like the only female in the gym. It didn't like, it wasn't a thing. I didn't like, you hear stories of people being like, oh, it's really like male dominated and intimidating or like not positive things. And I just kind of had a blast of the time playing with this kid. It was literally like I was playing. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I was just enjoying it. And I was like, you know what, this is really cool. I'm going to go downstairs every time I go to the gym, and I'm going to kind of figure out like what this is all about, and fell into like learning about, I guess, not so much strength training, but just like about hypertrophy in general. And it was really like the concept of being strong has always fascinated me, and like been like what I aspire to be like, as like a strong, this is such a stereotype, but independent female, you know, that kind of ideal. And the concept of being physically strong as well as like mentally strong and all of that is just very appealing to me. And because that was appealing. I think I gravitated towards the bodybuilding side of things because it's a visual representation of your physical strength, not so much the powerlifting side of things. Because I don't particularly mind what I can lift. I just like to know that I can physically look like I lift it. That's very superficial, but it's just I just gravitated towards that naturally and educated myself more and more about it as I went through uni, as I did my master's, and then even after now, like predominantly my life is based around like doing people's nutrition and training, and a lot of powerlifters in my life apparently, but that is kind of where I've ended up, and just pursuing more and more education about bodybuilding. It's literally it.
Nice. I think a lot of people start from the explorational kind of journeys where they enter the gym, they start on the cardio and then work their way around into weight training, and then from there it just grows and grows. So that's really interesting. I know. So was there any kind of like, obviously you said that you just started to empower yourself with getting much more knowledge in terms of understanding hypertrophy, how best to kind of set up your training routines, etc. I'm guessing you was just using just like the internet. You didn't have a coach back then. It was just all. Where was you getting your information from then?
All sorts. So like my background is really science-based, and like a fair bit of it is like, well, I'm going to say a fair bit of it's like biological sciences as well as like the not so biological side of things. So like it came naturally to me to kind of go find the information. Like as a uni student in first year, I don't know if a lot of people can like, this resonates with them, but I was broke. I was absolutely, all of my money went on my rent and my fees, and then like a bit on food, and that was it. Like I could barely afford to go out because I was on poverty uni student fees. That's it. So I didn't have the means to have a coach, and I wanted to learn myself. So I had access to the entire university library being a student. So I was like, I can access everything, whether it be geoscience related or not. So I had access to there. I educated myself through like, not so much YouTube, to be honest. And it wasn't so much influencers either. It was very like published material kind of that I educated myself on. I'd go off of like points that people had made and then find the material that backed that, and then understood the concepts behind it. So there were a few individuals that I really like did look up to who were science-based, like some of them like Scott Stevenson, which I really like hold up highly as like one of the people that has directed the way that I've tried to learn about bodybuilding. And another huge stereotype, Jordan Peters is one who I like looked up to like way back in like, I'm going to say like 2016, 2015 era. And those two are like two big names that I kind of like focused on how they looked at things and tried to like do similar myself with like the science-backed work and all of that. And then just kind of fell down different rabbit holes of knowledge and just like tried to plant more roots in like what I knew. And did a lot of guinea pigging with myself, like just try things, test them, see if they work, if they don't, what works for me. And that took a while. And I think that's predominantly how I've educated myself. I've never had a coach or anything like that. Just because I do like to fully understand what's going on and why it's going on. And I like the concept of me being a science experiment kind of, and having full control of all of the results and the variables. You can almost gamify bodybuilding if you think about it. Like you can make it a science experiment, but you will also make it a game. Like there is achievements to be unlocked. So it's very satisfying viewing it with those two kind of combined. That is just how I like to run it.
That is an interesting perspective of how to look at it, and I think that is certainly one way that will help you to kind of stay focused and just make sure you do what you need to do in order to get to where you get to. Because obviously a lot of people will say, hey, I want to get into bodybuilding, but that's what they want to do, but they're not quite sure, okay, well, what's the next level you're going to take it to, or how far you can go with it. So tell me about when you decided to kind of feel, okay, cool, maybe I feel like I'm making a little bit of progress here, want to mix it up a little bit, I want to try something new. When did the whole competing side of things come into it? Was that just someone in the gym saying to you, oh, you look like you could do well in this, or was it just more of your self-exploration kind of phase?
So that was actually, I never considered competing until maybe a year after starting to train. And it was a comment, ironically, it was a comment from someone in a local gym to where my parents live. I was just back at home from uni and I was training, doing I think it was like a shoulder session or something. And someone made a comment saying like, you'd actually make a really good women's physique competitor, but you have really narrow shoulders. And I'm sorry to say, you're always going to have really bad shoulders. And I took it on the chin. I was like, right, I know my shoulders aren't great. I know I am not someone who looks like a bodybuilder, but I aspire to be one. And now I'm never going to forget that. Thank you very much. I have to now go be the best. Like, I'm going to take it up a notch, not physique, like women's bodybuilding. I want to be the best one. Not purely because this person said it, but it almost spurred me on. Like, spite is a powerful thing. And I'm not going to say my entire career has been powered by spite. It hasn't. It's my own aspiration to be the best that I can be and the best that, like, what I want to put out there. But that kind of like flicked a switch in my head. Someone almost telling me that I couldn't do it made me want to do it so much more. So that's when I started to consider doing it. And then I think it was 2016, I did a competition, a regional with the WNBF. And that was my first comp, and actually the only comp I did, because I got like an invite to the British, and I was like, you know what, my physique is just not one that warrants going to the British. I'm sorry, thank you very much, but I cannot showcase this at the British.
Was that still as a bodybuilder, or was that
that was actually as a physique competitor, because they didn't do women's bodybuilding in that Fed at that time. I think they do now, but it was like the biggest class option, and I was like, well, I want to be bodybuilding, but I have to compete as a physique competitor. So it was no heels, no nothing like that. I treated it as bodybuilding, to be honest. I hit the bodybuilding poses, although I was told to change them. I know what I want to do, okay? So yes, I did that, and I was like, you know what, got back, and I was like, okay, you've learned a lot from this. Experiment ticked off. You now need to grow, because you are so small. So I took about, I'm going to say, a 5-year off season straight, all the way up until the Supernaturals event. And that is why I think I've developed the idea of gamifying bodybuilding, because it's what gets you through something like a 5-year off season. And I would just never be satisfied with like the level of size I have, or like development I have in general. And I think that's just like a personal trait of mine. I just will never be satisfied with that. And I'm absolutely fine with that, because that's what pushes for progress. But I wouldn't have competed like this year unless I had peer pressure. And I did have peer pressure from a few people around me who were just kind of saying like, well, you can't really, I'm bad for this, complain about the standard of women's bodybuilding in natural federations, because I've had a lot of friends speak to me about switching over to assisted, and I have no interest in doing it, purely because I see a trend of people saying that they take the sport very seriously, especially female bodybuilding, and then saying, well, the standard isn't very high in natural bodybuilding. I'm going to switch over to geared bodybuilding where the standard is really high, or perceived to be higher, which then just leaves like a massive like gap for like no one is competing in this natural bodybuilding female group. And that people are saying it's like dead or really quiet, or the standard's not there. And it's like, well, compete there, raise the standard. I'm not saying like I'm here to raise the standard. I'm like, well, if I'm another body competing, it's someone for someone else to compete against, and for two people to like push each other further, even if it's just two people. So that's kind of my take on it. But that's
it's quite an interesting journey to the world of competing, especially with that 5-year off season. Like, you know, that is a big off season, and I'm going to come back to that later. But yeah, I think one of the key things for me that I want to know is, obviously you talked about, you know, someone making a comment on and saying that, oh, you know, with shoulders like that you had, etc. So do you often get a lot of comments from guys, or, you know, other females in general, about your, you know, whether that's in the gym, outside the gym, on social media, etc., about how you're progressing with your training? Because obviously you sound like someone that goes all out. So I can imagine you being in the gym and some guys thinking, oh my gosh, she's actually working harder than me, but then we still feel like they would have to say something. So is that something that often happens to you?
Yeah, I mean, I sound like a snob when I say this, but I try to go to certain gyms where I know that people will not be like that. I've had my period of time where I've gone to like commercial gyms and they have their value, but like going to independent gyms is the answer for me, because generally speaking, independent gyms value, like, I'm going to say, athletes who know what they're doing. They know that they want to push their sport to the limits if they want to, or cruise along at a certain pace if they want to, but like they very much respect, like, from my experience, what I'm doing. There will always be people who have their opinion, whether they're male or female, it doesn't matter to me. I actually pay zero attention to it. It's probably what's made it a lot easier for me, especially like picking natural bodybuilding as like the kind of on the spectrum of like female like classes that you've got. It's probably the one that's most open to negative comments. That's just me like speaking from experience, but I don't I don't do it for people who make the comments. So it's not really of any value to me whether they have anything to say. But I do have people like either double take or say something or feel the need to comment. For whatever reason, I don't ever really pay enough attention to understand the reasoning behind it. But I'm like, I'm just here to do my training. I'm not really here to have a conversation either. Like once I'm done with my training session, I'll speak to you, but like politely decline the conversation that you're trying to initiate. And I'm gonna go do my set. Or just big headphones. Big headphones usually does the trick.
Big
like
headphones,
silence. Big headphones.
Yeah, silence is a lot of people. Like, it just basically says, leave me alone, basically, with the big headphones, right?
Exactly. It answers it for them. And usually if you get the kind of sort who's talking to you with your big headphones on, you're like, I'm not talking to you, no matter what you're saying. You don't get this hint. You're not worth talking to, sorry. So that's kind of my take on like people having anything to say. I mean, everyone will have something to say about the way I train. But because it's a bit of a hybrid between like, I guess it's a bit ignorant to say like stereotypical bodybuilding style training and stereotypical powerlifting training, but like I like to mesh a lot of different concepts of the two together when I train. And a lot of it is all out, and a lot of it is kind of pushing the boat in terms of like recovery demands. But that is part of what I enjoy so much, and I think what has carried me through a 5-year off season, the enjoyment of like the like relentlessly progressive well, like a PB on like a tricep extension is still a PB. I don't care what you say. Like if the overall tonnage is more than last week, if I can recover from it, I'm going to take it. So nice. People have opinions, but
then surely you must also get the opposite as well, as like a lot of female feeling a bit more empowered that they see you training and doing what you're doing, how you hold yourself whilst you're doing your training, and they feel like they must be saying to you, hey, love what you're doing, and you must motivate a load of other women to go in and just do.
I like to think so. Yeah, I like to think so. I mean, if I'm honest, I haven't had much feedback from women in general for like seeing me compete, seeing me train. I see the odd few people like in my gym training around me, and it's that they only have nice things to say. Like all of the women around me when I train, it's probably the gym that I go to and the gyms that I frequent. They're all really positive and so supportive. Same with the blokes, to be honest, in the gyms that I go to at the moment. But like, I think people only really begun saying things like about talking about empowerment and stuff very recently after seeing my stage shots. They don't really, I don't know whether it's them seeing my physique leaner or whether it's them just not knowing I'm on the radar when I'm in my off season and I'm heavier. I don't know what it is. But maybe it's just more attention, having done a show and actually reminding people I am a competitive bodybuilder. But yeah, people do say like it's more that like it's actually getting spoken about, like women's bodybuilding is actually like a thing that people are talking about, and that it's like absolutely something worth doing, and that it's like chasing progressive things in the gym as well as like with your physique is something worth doing, that people are being very supportive about. So I think it's encourage it more.
It's that category that some people just don't consider, because, you know, even some of the new talent that's coming into the competitive seasons, you know, there's often the bikinis, the figures, the athletics figure and etc. All of those classes get the big highlights, and then female bodybuilding is quite at the end, right? And it's often kind of, it's the earlier categories that most people just jump for, and less so female bodybuilding kind of thing. So, but I will see that I see that changing over time, especially when you've got people like yourself who are at the forefront of that and really pushing those levels there, because I think especially on the natural scene, because that alone is really impressive. And, when I saw you at the Worlds, and we'll get into the Worlds later, but, you held your own up there and you were just smashing it. So I think, it was super epic to see that. And I think over time, we'll start to see, those categories open up wider, and people will start to consider female bodybuilding alongside your bikinis and your tone figures and all of those ones, because those categories are super busy when you go to these shows, right?
Oh, yeah.
How many bikini competitors, they're just rammed. But then I think it's lack of education, right? That's what it is. It's just because when a lot of people are competing for the first time, they're unaware of all the different, requirements for the different classes. So I think all the federations just need to do a little bit more work about educating people about finding their right fit, right? In terms of what category will fit better for their physiques, and not for someone to then be doing a category just because, that's the only one that's available and they fit in it, and you like what you did and you was hitting bodybuilding poses.
I have no
what I mean? So I think that's what I like about the WNBF UK is that it's opening it up, and there will be a lot more education around the various different categories, and hopefully we get people in the right places where they need to be, right?
Absolutely. I think there's like an odd misconception about female bodybuilding, especially in the natural world. Like I know that in the geared world, it can be taken to extremes like far much more just because you have the chemicals to assist, right? In the natural world, I like to think of female bodybuilding as like, I want it to be like classic physique is for the men's in the Olympia currently, like almost overtaking the concept of like the mass monsters in like bodybuilding, but like women's bodybuilding in my eyes is the same like level of aesthetics as men's classic physique in the Olympia, like the same as like how men's bodybuilding theoretically and natural bodybuilding looks like classic physique just because of the nature of the sport. Like I do want women's bodybuilding to have like the same amount of flair and attention and like aesthetics, but also the same level of like pushing for size once you have that as men's classic classic physique in the Olympia. So it's something that's quite hard to push because I know that is also a niche in terms of people who want that physique. Like that's the hard thing about women's bodybuilding. It's more on the extreme end of the spectrum. Like every class is an extreme if you look at it like within its own parameters. But because women's bodybuilding requires people to push further past the societal norms of what you'd expect a woman to look like, there's far less demand because, well, one, I guess there's not a lot of people who want to look like that. Or if they do, there's not enough, like you said, education about how to get to that. There's also genetic components. There's also like far more societal barriers to feeling like that's acceptable. Like I personally have no issue with looking like however I want. I can walk around bald every day. I don't care. But that's me personally. Like some people would like to look like that, but don't know if their like friends and family will feel okay about it. Like this shouldn't be a question. It really shouldn't be. But like that is the reality of it. Whereas if you go into something like bikini, it's far more accessible in the sense that like a lot more people have heard about it. There's a lot more education about like the like class requirements in general. And it's a lot more like, it's not pushing the extremes of visually what you look like other than within the parameters, which are more like socially accepted. Whether that's right or not, like there's nothing wrong with bikini at all. I'm just saying it's not right for people to think that female bodybuilding is like some weird like freak show. It's literally just more muscle. In my eyes, it's just more muscle, more condition. And I just think it's like fun to push it to the extreme. Like why would you not want to do it? But people don't know about it. They just think of like old school, like they think of Iris Kyle. As soon as someone says female bodybuilding, they think of Iris Kyle. And I'm like, she is an absolute goddess. Like, I don't care what anyone says. She is phenomenal. There's a reason she won the Olympia 10 times. But there's also a reason that they took female bodybuilding out of the Olympia. So, you know, it doesn't help female bodybuilding if like the pinnacle of the sport, even in the geared side of things, is taking away female bodybuilding, has only just reintroduced it. Like it doesn't help. Like from higher up, if people like the WNBF are supporting female bodybuilding, that only helps filter down through to like my level and like people who are starting out. So it's just really refreshing to see a federation support it so much and like having sponsors come through and support the class as well. Like I know historically that it's always the case that bikini and figure get the big sponsors and the big names because it just fills more seats. But the more awareness you get for bodybuilding, the more seats it fills and the more sponsors there will be supporting the athletes that are pushing the limits on that class. So it's kind of like a catch-22. Someone's got to start somewhere and someone's got to also follow round with that. So
100%. And I think you touched on something really good. It's again, you know, it's all about having, you know, a lot of people do look for that support from the people around them as well. So how was it for you with obviously your choices of you going into bodybuilding? It sounds like your family are very supportive of what you do because you come from a very sporty background. So I guess your family are just used to getting behind you for whatever sports you do, right? How important is it for you to have, you know, your family just kind of, you know, support you and guide you and to be there with you alongside your journey, watch you're, you know, doing what you're doing?
So I would say it's important because I value like my family's opinions and kind of like their blessing almost. But I will always do what I want to do. So like when I started out, it was always my mum being like the stereotypical like, oh, are you sure you should eat that much protein? Is that okay? Like you're eating 5 eggs. Is that all right? And it's like, that's a lot of chicken, Layla. But like ultimately it's with good intent. It's for care that they say those things. And I've educated myself enough to be confident in saying, I'm not hurting myself. I feel really rough. I'm dieting, but I'm not dying.
Yeah.
So that's important that they kind of like back it in that sense, and they're not like overly negative about it. But other than that, it's mainly my sisters that are like my support in terms of my family, because like we're very similar in age and we all do strength sports. Well, one sister's a figure athlete, well, a mix of different classes, athlete, bodybuilder. We're going to say female bodybuilding as a whole across the classes, and then one is a powerlifter. So because we're all very similar in age, we all actually started training for our sports and kind of classes at a very similar time. We used to train together for like years and years, and obviously got our own routines now, but like we still do train together very often and support each other in like the decisions we make. And like a lot of the calls that I made in prep were like backed by my sisters being like, yes, this is the right decision, like a second eye kind of thing and a third eye. So yeah, that's very important. I think they play more of a role than like the rest of my family do.
But it's a solid support system that you got there, especially with all the disciplines there, but then they all lead onto each other, which is really, really nice. And as you said, you got that, you know, three levels of perspective to help you, to guide you and push you in the right direction. And I think
absolutely,
when it comes to family, it's a case of educating, right? So, you know, you're always going to get curious mum or mum that's in protective mode, but it's all about educating mum, right? So say, mum, you know, by me, this, you know, you bring her on the journey. I think that's the best thing to do when you have your family and friends, and they're not they don't really know too much about bodybuilding, but you've got to educate them in order for them to come along the journey with you and for it to be a smooth ride, and for them to see that you're okay. You might just be grumpy and moany, but you're doing okay. So I think that's really important to have. So talk a little bit about, you know, your approach to prep going into the WNBF UK show, because obviously you came from a 5-year off season. And again, I'm going to emphasize this again, guys, 5-year off season. So Layla was to put on a lot of science. All right. So talk to me about your approach. Was there a game plan? You must have been eating a load, you know. Take us through that.
I don't think I really had a single diet in that 5-year period. There were periods of like pulling back a little bit purely to like accommodate for like changes in lifestyle or like changes in like my digestive ability, but never really a diet. So like it was literally 5 years of just getting stronger and like also heavier, also bigger, which was great. And I'm absolutely in it for the long game. Like I said at the very start of the 5 years, I didn't know it would be 5 years. I just said I need to get bigger. Until I'm big enough to warrant calling myself a female bodybuilder, I will not step on a stage, whether that be me deciding it, my peers deciding it, even speaking to like someone who's directly involved in like a judging panel deciding it. Like I was very open, but I went in knowing that my goal is to be the biggest female bodybuilder who's in the natural world to exist, like out of ever, like not currently, not out of this year that's competing, just ever. And I stand by that. That is my goal. But knowing that, I knew that it would not be a 1 year off season. No, it wouldn't be, I've competed 2016, I'll just compete 2018. I knew that it would be longer than that. So I kind of just went in progressively training, educating myself more and more, eating progressively alongside that. And I did end up eating a lot, yes. But I have a huge...
Obviously, talk to me about the food, because obviously you had to eat more, right? And this is often a struggle for a lot of people to understand, okay, cool, you're going to need to consume a little bit more calories in order to hold that weight, right? So what was your approach around that?
So it was very science-based, I'm going to say. Like I'm quite logical in my approach to everything training. I'm not very like, I don't get in my head purely because it's like, well, it's black or white, it's this or this. And if you don't know if it's this or this, you need to find out. So your goal is to find out, no matter whether it's right or wrong, you're moving forwards. So it was literally a matter of like figuring out the numbers of where I was at, and then just like logically just going, increase this. Okay, that worked well. Increase this. Did it work well again? A lot of trial and error, because I've never had a coach and I like never had one previously to like learn off of. It was just me applying science that I'd found mainly on the internet through published articles, all of that. And applying that to myself and finding what worked, writing that down. Literally everything is written down. It's insane. Like my logbook is like I'm not going to say diary, because I don't like write dear diary, here are my feelings. I write my logbook. I write like, you know, the date, what I weigh in at, what my macros are, how many hours sleep I've had. It's all very like pen and paper based. I'll track everything like online, but I like a pen and paper to record everything about training, food, sleep, everything. So very science-based, very data collection-based. And that meant that it was very easy to quantify like where I was at. So I could look back and be like, well, you know, a year ago I was eating this and now I'm eating this. I'm 5 kilos heavier. That's to be expected. I need to eat progressively. Like, oh, my weight's dropped this week. Like, actually now it's 2 weeks in a row that it's dropped. I really need to eat more, you know, things like that. And then you pick up on patterns that work really well for you, and like you notice things that are going on. If you control as many variables as possible and then just have like one that you change every so often, it is literally a science experiment. And with 5 years of science experiments on yourself, you have a lot to work with. So it becomes quite easy, especially if you know that like you figured out what works. Like once you get like a golden secret sauce of like the combination of things you need to get going, you just go at it like nothing else, because you know it works. You can just go ahead with full conviction, knowing that it is the right direction, and that is a very nice position to be in. And obviously life gets in the way, but like if you know what works, like you can make it happen. I think that's what kind of I was chasing.
It sounds like you made a very productive use of that 5 year off season, and obviously got you into a nice position leading into when you decided you wanted to go and compete, right? So once you said, okay, cool, WNBF UK show's coming up. Okay, I want to drop the hammer. I'm gonna get into this one. You know, talk to us about the prep leading into that. You know, how much time did you give yourself, and what was the protocol that you put in place for it?
Yeah, so it was actually quite turbulent. So I got pretty unwell. I think it was it this January? Yeah, this January. I got pretty unwell, had to go to hospital, emergency surgery and all of that. I lost about 10 kilos over, I'm going to say 3 weeks. It was like a lot. So I came to January time. I was like, I committed to competing in 2021 around like end of November, early December. Then I got hit with this and I was like, well, I'm not going to back out. I'm going to deal with what I've been given, but oh my goodness, I need to eat up because I've just lost 10 kilos. I cannot diet from this point. This is abysmal. So I actually dieted slightly later than I'd originally wanted to, because I knew I was carrying a lot of excess body fat. The sacrifice that I'd made at the expense of like kind of wanting to gain as much muscle as possible, I did not want to sacrifice any time. So I was like, I will just get a bit fat and I will diet down. Because everything is temporary when it comes to that. I don't care if I get a bit chubby, as long as I can gain muscle and partition nutrients like effectively. So I just ended up dieting. I think it was about a month or two later than I wanted to start. I wanted to start around March, but then I ended up starting around like April time, because I just had not gained back the weight or any kind of fullness. I just looked like a different human being, obviously after losing 10 kilos through just not training and being unwell. So that was when I started dieting, and it was a complete unknown. So I'd spent all of those 5 years learning how to grow, because I knew the secret sauce, I knew how to make it work, but I hadn't spent those 5 years dieting. So I was like, okay, well, I know I can really push to kind of the ends of the spectrum when I'm eating up and when I'm like training and recovery abilities, like I can really push that. But when I'm dieting, I don't know how I respond to certain things. It's very much like, this is now going to be another science experiment with no background data. So I was like having to try different things, having to kind of play with the idea of putting like either cardio in early or late, or like how far I could push my like keep my training exactly the same, because like the way I train is like pretty rough. I'm gonna say like it requires a lot of work in terms of like my ability to recover, just because it is like it's essentially balls to the wall 24/7. That's the fun of it, but like it was like a learning curve in how to adjust that. Would I need to adjust that when I was prepping? Would I not? Turns out I didn't really need to until like the last like 2-3 weeks, when I was like a shell of a human, or so it felt like. Turns out RDLs are not fun when you're really skinny. No, they're not. But it was a massive learning curve. So like I knew that going into it, I knew I had started later and that I was at a really high body fat percentage, like with respect to where I wanted to start. I knew I'd start relatively high because I knew I'd have a massive amount of time to diet down. It was like all the way until October. But I committed to the fact that like I would diet down and push it as hard as I wanted to without causing any long-term damage. And the condition that I hit at that point would just be the condition I was on stage at. And I was kind of at peace with that, because I know that, like I said earlier, I'm in it for the long haul. Like one show isn't going to be the end of my career. Like, okay, if you show up 1 year and you look rubbish, oh, you best do better next time. Like I'm not going to get like in my head about it. It's not an emotional thing. It's just, well, you applied this and it didn't work, or you need 8 more weeks, etc. So that's a position.
Thinking the way how you keep talking about your approach to how how you look at things and how you do it, because you're basically saying, okay, cool, everything's a learning ball. You know what I mean? Everything we're going to learn from. So whether we hit it right, we hit it wrong, we take away the plus, we document the whole thing, and we just progress to that next stage until we hit that end goal, which is, it's not often heard, because everyone's like, okay, you know what, they put all their eggs in one basket and they want to just chuck it for one show, and then when it doesn't happen, they just pretty much just say, okay, cool, that was it, kind of thing. But you're consistently learning and consistently developing, the way in which your approaches are executed, and it's amazing to hear that. So so as you got closer to the show, how was you feeling when the show was coming up? Did you know that, okay, cool, yes, female bodybuilding is going to be the category for me, I'm looking forward to rocking it? What was you feeling in that lead up to the show?
Yeah, so I knew that female bodybuilding was a class I wanted to do, like from before even deciding that like I wanted to compete with WNBF. Like I literally knew that like from the start of the 5-year off season, female bodybuilding is where it's at, because everything I did was tailored towards that. Yeah. So I was quite, I didn't really know what my physique would look like underneath all of my chub. Yeah. It was really, really odd to see how I'd ended up. And it was very, very satisfying to see that I had grown a set of shoulders. It was really good to hear. And like everyone around me was like,
the guy that made the comment can do one then, right?
Absolutely. He can suck it. I hope he hears this, or I hope he's seen stage shots. Like, I know who he is. He probably doesn't even remember making this comment, bless him. It was probably well intended, but it has stuck with me, and it will forever. My shoulders will never be big enough. But it was really nice to see like certain areas of my physique that I had like really worked on bringing out had like developed more so than I even realized. Like I thought, like, look, my legs are like I'm gonna say like a good amount of my body fat is on my legs. Typical like female like structure of where I keep my body fat. And I was like, look, my legs, I best not be top heavy. I better not be top heavy. This would be really embarrassing if I look like a men's physique athlete and I'm a female bodybuilder. Like, I'm meant to have a set of legs that I'm meant to show. I've got to show them. Like, I don't get to wear board shorts, and like I need to show this. So that was something I was worried about. But like, turns out like my quads grew more than I realized, and like there was a lot more down there than I thought that there was in terms of like development. So that was good. And just like seeing how my physique like kind of, I could see more going on, was really satisfying. And like I felt like I was looking more and more like a female bodybuilder. Nice. Obviously there's things that you're never satisfied with, and I was like, oh, I just want a bit more here, a bit more there. Like already I was like, oh, off season adding these things in, or off season, no, I need way more of this work and all of that. And one thing that I kept getting told through my entire time growing was, stop training your arms. Stop training your damn arms. Your biceps and your triceps just overpowering your shoulders that are already not great, right? And it was great to see that my arms actually looked halfway decent and weren't too overpowering for my physique. That was a concern I had, but I refused to stop training them, purely because I'm stubborn, and also because like no one likes string bean arms. Everyone likes big arms. So like, why is female bodybuilding different?
Yeah, that's a weird one. Stop training arms. Okay.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, I'll say that was mainly figure athletes telling me to do that. So like, you know what, they're all about shoulders, so I'll allow that. But yeah, so that was that's kind of how it went. In going into like the final couple 3 weeks, I came to like the realization and the acceptance of the fact that I was like, that my condition's not going to be there. Like, nothing is going to magically pop out of 3 weeks. Like, I will push it, and I will push it really hard. But not like it can only work so fast, right? Like, you can't literally starve yourself. Like, you can't be like, I just won't eat. Like that's not going to happen. That's not how it works. So I mean, it felt like that, but just pushed it as much as I could, ramped everything up as much as I could, and just went, look, this is the stage condition that I'm going to hit. That's it. I did think there would be other competitors. Like, for some reason I was under the impression that there'd be like 1 or 2 girls there as well. Unfortunately there weren't. So I was like, this is a lot easier. This is a lot easier now. I just get to stand on the stage and flex.
So talk to me about how you felt, obviously being the only competitor, because sometimes you could go to a show, right? And depending on how many people in your class, you could be the only one. You know, it's not all guaranteed that you're going to have a lineup of about 5 or 6 of you, or even more. So how did that feel when it's only just you one? Did you feel like, okay, cool, I've achieved what I wanted to achieve by getting to stage, and that was enough for you? Or was there more of a hunger for you to then go on and compete, where you could test your physique against other people. How did it make you feel as a competitor?
Yeah. So it was a little disappointing, purely because I knew that I wouldn't be able to compete with someone. So I'm quite competitive. I like to, like, if my goal is to be the best female bodybuilder out there, the biggest one that they've ever seen, I need to compare myself to someone. I can't just look back at a photo of like who was the world champ for like however many years in a row and just be like, I think I look bigger than them. I need to be able to stand on a stage and beat people to show that I'm better than that selection of that year. And then I need to be on that stage to be compared to those physiques so the judges can give me the feedback and be like, yes, actually, that was a pretty decent showing. Because if you're by yourself, it's really, really hard to judge perspective of size.
Yes.
Like it's you just look like a physique. Whereas if you compare yourself to like 2 or 3 others, you can get an idea for like, oh my goodness, that person has actually humongous hamstrings. Look at the other guys.
Yeah.
So it was a bit frustrating because I feel like I really, like, once my condition wasn't there, I really nailed my peak in terms of like at least the evening show, which was like complete, like the science was there and the theory was there, but it was trial and error in the sense of like I didn't have a practice peak because I was not conditioned enough to practice that. So it was like going in blind, just applying the science exactly, and it worked pretty well. So like that was frustrating that I couldn't showcase that and compete against anyone, but I knew that if I wanted to be the best in the world, I knew that I would have to win this anyway. So like I knew that I came in there like showing the best I would have, and like I knew that I'd just go to the Worlds and just showcase what I could at Worlds. So I was like, that's fine. I just get to practice a posing, practice a show day. Yeah.
That's the great thing about it. And I think you got brought back on with some of the guys, right? In order on that show. Correct me if I'm right or wrong there.
Yeah, that's right. I got brought on with the short men's bodybuilding, which was very nice of them.
So at least you pushed some of the gents then on the stage then, right?
yeah, that was really nice of them. I felt almost disrespectful jumping in on like another class. Because like, I mean, it is the short men's bodybuilding, so it's like they're about my height, and there were bodybuilders as well, but I was like, look guys, I'm not here to like try to like one up you, like I get it, like we are different classes. I'm just like, it would be weird me doing a pose down like by myself. So I'm just going to join in, and they were really nice about it. They were great. They were like, they only had positive things to say, so that was quite the experience.
I think that the WNBF UK show, the Supernatural show, was definitely an experience and a half. And I think that was in the forefront of, the show, is to make sure that everyone had an experience. So whether you was in your class on your own, it's all about making sure that you had an experience, right? So that's where I'm sure the guys would have then put you with the bodybuilding show, just so you guys can just kind of still enjoy your stage time, right? So you didn't feel like you got less stage time compared to everyone else. So absolutely. The WNBF Supernatural show, obviously you was looking for a bit of competition, didn't really get the competition that you wanted. Then the Worlds presented itself. Talk to me about the decision to go to the Worlds. Was you just like, yes, I can now get that battle that I'm looking for?
Yeah, so I was so torn because Worlds was like in Vegas, right? So I knew that like, if I commit to this is a big expense for me. And I was like, I want to be the best in the world. And it's like really short notice because I thought that there would be other competitors, and I didn't know how I'd stack up to the competitors in the Supernaturals in the UK. So I didn't know it was a guarantee that I would get to Vegas. I wasn't 100% sure, so I hadn't organized anything. And when you're prepping, thinking and organizing is rough. At least it was for me. So I was like trying to organize all of these like different tests for COVID, all of these flights, and I was committed to doing it because I was like, look, I'm going to do it. Like I've committed to prepping down, and I've dieted, and I'm not going to diet for nothing. Like I will if it benefits my physique, but all of this time I've spent, I'm acutely aware that I have not been growing. So I am going to do this show. So I committed to it, went there, and that was, it's bittersweet because I am very happy that I went and very happy that I got to showcase myself. But the 5 to 6 days leading up, I was actually pretty unwell. So as soon as I stepped off of the plane from Vegas, to Vegas, I was like, it's weird. I explained it like on my Instagram, but it was almost like I was hungover. I stepped off the plane and I thought, my goodness, I might just pass out. And a lot of people have said like, it could be nerves, it could be anything, but speak to me for a moment and you'll realize that it's not nerves. It's literally just, I don't know what it was. It could have been bad food. It could have been like anything, but I was not all there. I was like holding on to my partner for dear life, being like, just walk me through the airport and we'll get to the hotel and I will just like, I don't know what, I'll fix it. And I was like white as a sheet and I was not all there, but it went through that for like all the way through, like even after the show, I was just not right. I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink. So the peak was rough. I think I peaked on bananas and Gatorade. And that was something else. Yeah, that was just far from the complete opposite of what I had planned. Like my little scientific plan of like exactly how to peak like I did in the UK, and like just little tweaks that I wanted to make that would have really made it better. Not an option. Could not get food in me, could not really drink. So it was just a case of like make do with the situation you've been given and adapt to that. So I did also buy like a bunch of like sweets that would dissolve that I didn't really have to digest. And just made adaptations where I could have had to change my posing because like I couldn't control my gut. Like it was like almost distended. It was anything that you could predict to be like really inconvenient for like a world stage. It was that. So that happened. But I hate to make excuses. So I was like, that's fine. We deal with it. We just get the tan on, change your posing, don't flex your abs down, just like hit what would be a vacuum, but just looks like you're flexing your abs now. So like make do with that. You look a little bit like not full, but also a little bit watery. Like you just make the most of it. Just enjoy your time. So I went in there like knowing that that was what my physique was looking like, and just kind of like took a look around the room. This probably says a lot about my ego, but like I looked around the room when people were pumping up and everything, and I was like, yeah, I got this. That's really bad, but that confidence just carried me through. I was like, it's just full of female bodybuilders. That's great. And it was really nice to have like a woman from the UK team as well, because like just having her there was like, it made the warm-up room and the pump-up room so much more fun, because everyone else was like kind of scowling, and I was like, we could be friends. We are a rare breed. Let's be friends. And they were kind of like doing their own thing. They're probably focusing on the fact that they were at Worlds. And I was sitting talking to Eve about bodybuilding and like pumping up and all of that. So
shout out to Eve. So talk to me about behind stage. Like, so obviously a lot of people don't get to see behind the scenes of what happens, you know. So before you're going on stage, you're in the pump up area. You know, what was the experience like around there? Was you buzzing? Because then that's when you start to see everyone, right? You start to see everyone finding little touches and preparations. Was you excited? Was nerves kicking in? You know, or was you thinking, I'm just ready to rock this now?
I was very excited because like if you look back at the history of like the shows I've done, literally just the Supernaturals and that WNBF one like a couple of years back, I've never actually had anyone to compete against. So this was the first time that I had ever been backstage pumping up like as usual, just pumping up, but also with other women who were in my class. So I was like a little bit sizing them up, a little bit like, hi, let's be friends, a combination of everything, and also like still shoveling sweets down me to like get some kind of food in me. And it was like a combination of everything. It was really good. But I was also like, when are we going on stage? Because it was relatively early on in times of the lineup of the amateurs. But no one knew any of the timing. So we were kind of all in the same boat of being like, do I kind of pump up now? Do I pump up in 5 minutes? Or do I keep pumping up all the way through just to not have a pump up? Because I didn't get much of a chance to pump up for the Supernaturals, because like the timing was like, I was the only one in my class. So I didn't have much time to like wait for other people to show me where to go. So I was like, I'm not missing my chance to pump up. Just started pumping up early and just carried it through. Also it's fun. So I just kept doing that because it's nothing more fun than being like actually pretty lean and getting a pump. So it's like, I will make the most of this. And a couple of the other women were like on the other side of the room, but it was mainly just me and Eve from like the UK team who were just chatting away, like talking about like definitely hitting a most muscular together at the pose down. We were like, we have to do it. It's compulsory. Like, I don't care what all the other ladies are doing. We're hitting a most muscular. And we did. That was very nice.
You passed at the pause, right? That was a mixture of different age ranges as well, and different physique types, but they all still came under female bodybuilding, which I think, you know, when I was out in the crowd with the rest of the team GB, you know, it was really, really great to see, you know, so many women coming together and saying, you know what, we are female bodybuilding. This is it at the Worlds. And it was a great showdown. You know, you was moving left, right, and center. They used you to push a lot of the athletes. I'm telling you that now.
Yeah.
When you got on the stage and you was all up there and you was all lined up and the lights was on you, did you feel like, okay, yes, this is what I've been waiting for, I'm here, let's maximize it?
Yeah, that was literally it. Like, it was weird because when you're posing, you don't know how you size up to the other people. All you can do is show your best, right? Because you don't have a mirror in front of you comparing yourself to other people. So you can only walk out there being like, I am the best. I am the biggest one, and you need to look at me. Yes. I am the best physique out here. So it was very fun doing that and kind of showcasing that where possible, and like trying to kind of almost like size up the people who were being put next to me, seeing where I was placed like in the center, and kind of like adjusting my posing depending on who I was next to, only slightly, but just enough. But it was very fun. Yeah, I don't think, because I've never had that experience of like posing against other people. There's nothing like it. I love it.
I can see you was in your element, literally was in your element. So, it was really good. And then obviously the show format was a bit of a weird one, whereas everyone went off and then, was it top 5 or I think it's top
5.
Top 5 came back to do the routines and stuff like that. So, tell the people how you placed. Like, how did you place at the show?
Yeah, I placed third. So they brought the top 5 out and they got us to do all the routines. My music cut out in my routine, so I kind of just winged it a little bit, gave them a little bit of a bicep flex, waiting for my routine. I was like, do you want another one? I'll give you another one. And then the music started playing again and people were like, just carry on with your routine. I was like, fine, you don't like the bicep flexing, that's okay. I'll carry on with my routine. Did that, went off stage and waited for them to kind of deliberate. And then they called us all out, gave all the placings, and I placed third. I was quite happy with it. Obviously not as happy as I would have been with first. I will not lie to anybody. I was like, yeah, third. But like ultimately the judges are there to judge.
Yes,
right, they're the ones who are judging what they deem within the criteria that they set to be the best female bodybuilder. And ultimately I don't disagree with the negative points, the things that they said could have done with work on my physique and comparatively to second and first place. Ultimately all it came down to for me was conditioning. They were really happy with my physique, like in terms of development, size, symmetry, like everything was great other than conditioning. And I was like, that's fine, because I look at it like this, like the whole long haul idea again. Conditioning takes another like 6 to 8 weeks. For everyone else to catch up with me size wise takes years. And I spoke to them like, this probably doesn't sound great, but I kind of went, how did I size up against the pros? Like size wise, where was I? And they straight up turned around and said, well, actually bigger. And I was like, that's all I need to hear. That's all I need to hear, because you won't catch up. All it takes for me is to do another like intermediate kind of period now, and then next year, that's it. Wow. I've done my little science experiment of a prep now, and I have the data to back that up. So I'm far more equipped to do next year's season and be a little bit more lethal, I think.
Well, I think that's a great thing that you've done, is that you obtained the judges' feedback as well. And that's one of a lot of things that athletes that are not aware of, especially new athletes, that you can obtain judges' feedback. Every federation will do it in different ways, but it's great if there is an opportunity to get that, critical feedback from the guys that are at the judging table. Please do so, because it will help you, put you in a better position for the next time you compete. And sometimes it makes a difference of where you compete in. So sometimes you may compete in the UK, compete worldwide. Everyone's looking for different things. So make sure that you understand what is required of you, depending on what stage you're stepping on. So obviously, Layla, you got some great news in terms of that. They said that you got a pro size, so you're all good.
No complaints.
Got it documented. So I'm looking forward to seeing when you next touch on stage. So what are the future plans for yourself? Where next? When next?
So when next? I'm going to straight up say that next year I will compete. I'm taking these couple months to eat up so that I'm in a really good position to diet down again for next year's comps. I will very likely be hitting a couple comps next year. I'm not gonna say who, I'm not gonna say where or when, but from kind of like summertime next year onwards through to like the end of the year really, I'm going to be hitting a couple comps. And I think it'll be all female bodybuilding classes. Absolutely, that's not a question. And I think because I know that a lot of different feds, like you said, like what feedback you get back from the judges kind of decides where you compete in terms of like whether you go to the UK, whether you go international, what feds you go with even. And for me personally, that doesn't probably naively, that doesn't change for me where I go, because I have an idea of what I want to showcase as female bodybuilding and what I want to push forward as female bodybuilding. And I ultimately try to shape my physique into that, to showcase that, and give judges the opportunity to rank that and reward that as they see fit. So that for me is kind of like the like a litmus test of like, how do you view this physique without even looking at the criteria? Because like the criteria can be quite like subjective. So it's like I will compete with different feds or different regions, etc., depending on like what fits best for my schedule of when I will be at my best. And then whether they kind of support that kind of physique or not, or want to push for certain different things in that class or not, will kind of dictate where I place. So I have an idea of what I want to push for natural female bodybuilding, and I will show it to everyone who wants to see.
Right, you sound like a woman that is on an extreme mission, and I'm looking forward to following the journey. Seriously, female bodybuilding, guys, get behind this. And Layla's definitely at the forefront of this, you know, especially from the natural side of things. And I love to hear that, because I think, you know, a lot of other women hearing this will feel empowered, even if they kind of like was umming and ahhing about female bodybuilding. But to hear someone else's story like yours from the beginning, and how where you are now, and you know your approach to, you know, you getting to where you need to go and reaching that end goal, it's super motivating to hear. So yeah, man, I'm looking forward to seeing you when you next jump on stage, and hopefully you'll grace back a WNBF UK show.
Oh, yes.
Well, right?
Yes.
You got
without a doubt.
We definitely
without a doubt.
A few more females in there for you, and get you a real little battle on a UK stage, because that will definitely be the one to see, 100%. But as I said to you, at the Worlds, it was amazing to see you just rock that stage and really give, you know, those ladies a run for their monies on that stage. So yeah, man. But Layla, thank you so much for being on the show. Actually, I got one more question to actually ask you. What advice, what 3 things would you give any newbies about, you know, considering getting into, you know, competing? You know, what would be your 3 big things that you would say to them that they should do? Advice.
That's a tough one. 3 different things. I'm going to say this one's a combined one, so this counts as one. This is either get a coach to educate you, or educate yourself about as much as you can physically cope with, because the more you understand, the better direction you can take. Like the more information you have, the better equipped you are to deal with anything and everything. That's like food, training, class-wise, fed-wise. Just like go out and seek knowledge. That's the one most important thing, whether that be a coach or yourself. I think the second thing is make the choices for yourself. Please don't just listen to everybody around you, what the norm is, what like you feel like most people are into. Like go out and, like, you're already trying to educate yourself. Pick for you what fits you. Like I would never look like a good bikini girl, let's be real. But I want to be a female bodybuilder, regardless of what my physique looks like. But like, I have the knowledge now, like my physique fits that, and I choose to be a female bodybuilder. Like that is like my own decision, and it makes it so much easier to stick to and like push forwards with, because I want it. Then I think the third one is just, oh wow, that's a hard one. I feel like those two ones kind of encompass it. I'm not struggling to find like to fit things into 3. I'm struggling to find more. Like once you've got those 2 down, it's like that's a lot. I think your environment, focus on your environment. That's a big one. Those around you and the places you put yourselves in, like that reflects back on you and how you treat yourself as an athlete. Like I always say to people, like, do you want to be an elite level athlete? Like treat yourself like one. Like put yourself in a gym that treats you like one. Put yourself around people that respect that and support that. Like if you need an early night, your friends should respect that and be like, that's okay, you're working towards your goals. Like I'll see you another day. So your environment is huge.
Love that. That was spot on. Those golden nuggets is exactly what I was looking for you to drop there. So guys, please take note of what Layla's just said, because there are some golden gems there. But Layla, thank you so much for being on today's show. It's been a blast, and I'm sure we'll get you back on for another chat, because we want to try and get a round table with a few more females as well. Okay. So yes. Lovely. Being on the show. And guys, remember, I want to say a massive shout out to our sponsors, CMP Nutrition. And just remember that we have our first timer show coming up on the 17th of July in 2022. And then we got the big Supernaturals Open Championship on the 9th of October. Okay, so we've got 2 shows in 2022. And later would obviously be rocking up on, Supernaturals one. Yeah? No pressure.
Absolutely. Guaranteed. Join in, absolutely do it.
It's going to be a blast, guys. So yes, again, that's another episode from us at WNBF UK, and we look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Peace out.